That breaking news, we've been following it all evening. Claremont County Police investigating a shooting involving multiple children. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Jacobs.
And I'm Ashley Kirkland. This is all unfolding right now along Laurel-Lindale Road in Monroe Township. Now we have live team coverage from the scene. We begin with WLWT News 5's Jatera McGee with the latest on what we do know. And Jatera, what can you tell us? We know it's a tragic situation.
Absolutely, Ashley, and you can tell by the scene around me that it's definitely calmed down from earlier today. A very chaotic and tragic situation unfolding this afternoon. The first calls to 911 started coming in around 4:15. So here's what we know. Again, the shooting happening on Laurel-Lindale Road. It's close to an auto body or an auto shop here and also to the Monroe Township Fire Department. We do know that there are multiple victims. We do not know how many or their conditions at this time. Unclear how many may have survived this shooting. We are also working to learn what happened to the shooter. We know that there is no longer an active threat. It's not clear if that person may have been taken into custody, if they were shot, or if they shot themselves. That's information we'll be getting from investigators as soon as they're ready to release it. I just talked to a woman who witnessed some of this. She said she saw a teenager run from the home screaming to call 911, that a family member was shooting everyone. And that woman says she called 911 herself. You can see that there's a very active police scene that's been here for several hours, and neighbors are absolutely stunned.
I'm shocked, to be honest with you. We moved here 6 years ago, and the place is great, and you know, New Richmond's coming up, and you just hate to see anything like this anywhere. So.
And any hour, we're expecting a briefing from investigators here, likely Sheriff Leahy, who will be leading that briefing. The sheriff of Claremont County here, we spoke with him very briefly. I could tell he was emotional and shaken up by what he and his investigators have seen unfold today. You can see it on many of their faces. This is not something that any of them get into this profession to see, to investigate. Unfortunately, sometimes they have to encounter these kinds of extremely awful scenes involving kids, and that's what happened here today. So as soon as we know when that briefing is going to happen, of course we will let you know and bring it to you live. Reporting live in Monroe Township, Jatera McGee, WLWT News 5.
Jatera, I know that you've been out there a couple of hours at this point. You've talked to neighbors, and that neighbor said that he was arriving home. Have you talked to any neighbors that maybe were in the area and maybe heard the gunshots or heard something?
Yeah, well, I can tell you that there are many homes around here, so if you were home, you probably did hear something. I know Lindsay Stone was able to speak to a couple of neighbors, so she'll have some better perspective on that. But just to give you a sense of the area as Angela is panning around, there are numerous homes in this area. We can't see the home directly involved just because of where we're being kept back and where the crime scene tape is taped off. We can't see the exact home involved, but I can tell that it looks like a couple of homes over in that direction. Ashley.
Just an unsettling situation for a usually quiet neighborhood there. Jatera McGee live with photojournalist Angela Johnson. Thanks so much for that perspective. And we're continuing our team coverage on the breaking news tonight.
That's right. WLWT News 5's Lindsay Stone is also live on the scene, kind of on the other end of where this is happening. Lindsay, what can you tell us?
Well, like Jatera said, you can just see the toll that this is taking, not just on law enforcement, as she mentioned, but also neighbors. I spoke to one woman who was just sitting outside her porch when she heard several gunshots, and she was shaking as she described just how terrifying that was. Take a listen.
I was sitting in the garage here, and all of a sudden I hear boom, boom, and at like 5 more, I'm like, that's 7 shots. That's shots. Like, there's no way. So I was freaking out like this before I got ready and everything, and I don't know, man. Before that, I saw 2 cars right here on this street zoom as fast as humanly possible. It was like something's going down. Like, we heard skids, and I was like, this is like too far for it to not be something. And I thought maybe it was fireworks, but it was a boom, like a loud boom.
And you could hear in the background those dogs barking. She said her dogs have been on high alert in the last couple of hours since this all happened. They reacted when they too heard those gunshots. And we were standing here right on Laurel Lindell Road when a man walked up to me and he asked what exactly was going on. He said he lives on this street. He knows all of his neighbors. And when I told him what we knew, he immediately said, "Oh my gosh, I got to get out here. I got to get to my kids. They're home alone right now." And so he sped off. He was visibly upset. Like he said, he knows all of his neighbors. And so he was so worried that this was happening in his backyard. All the community members and neighbors I've spoken to said this is a very quiet area. They do not expect something like this. And they're holding their breath and holding on to hope as we figure out the condition of those children. Reporting here, Lindsay Stone, WWT News 5.
All right, and Lindsay, Jatera was speaking with neighbors. You were speaking with neighbors. You've been out in this area for a couple of hours now. Do you get the sense this is a really close-knit community?
Yeah, you know, as I just mentioned, a lot of people know their neighbors. Everyone seems to know everyone. And so some of the people believe that they know exactly who was in the house or the people involved here. We're not going to be releasing that until police give us that information. And again, just as I mentioned, just such a close-knit community. And so everyone just really holding out to hope as we wait to hear the conditions of those involved, Chris.